Tonight, we're stepping back into another time. Imagine opening your eyes one morning, not in your own familiar bed, but in the midst of a home from the 1880 seconds. You find yourself surrounded by fine wooden furniture, heavy fabrics, and an air that feels at once elegant and unsettling. The Victorians loved beauty, but hidden within their houses were countless dangers they never suspected. As you settle in, remember that you're safe where you are now, but let's wander carefully through this unfamiliar place. Your eyes open slowly, meeting a darkness far heavier than the faint glow of street lamps or electronics you know in your own world. Here, it is true, enveloping night. The mattress beneath you is not memory foam, not even springs as you'd expect, but a pad stuffed with horsehair that sags unevenly. The sensation is strange, and when you shift, the faint crinkle beneath is straw, placed there to add cushioning. Not exactly luxurious by your standards, but perfectly normal for the time. The air presses against your lungs with a weight you're not used to. It smells of old wood, a faint tang of coal dust, polish, and candle wax. Your breath rises in small puffs of mist, a reminder that these houses were cold in the mornings, even for those considered comfortable in life. There is no central heating here, only fireplaces, and none yet lit. Suddenly, you hear it, the sound of steps on wooden stairs. A soft glow appears beneath the door. The hinges creak open, and a girl in a plain dark dress with a white apron steps inside, balancing a candle in her hand. She dips in a quick curtsy. "Good morning, ma'am. It's 6 o'clock. Shall I start your fire?" You barely nod before she is already kneeling at the grate, arranging kindling and coal. Within minutes, warmth sparks and crackles into life, softening the cold around you. "Cook says breakfast will be at 8. Shall I prepare a bath for you?" For a fleeting moment, the thought of hot water tempts you until you recall what that involves. Servants hauling bucket after bucket up the staircase, pouring them into a metal tub placed right here in your room. And they wouldn't leave you alone. They would wait while you washed. Privacy, as you know it, simply wasn't part of this life. "Just some water for washing, please," you answer quietly. The girl nods and disappears, only to return soon with a porcelain pitcher and basin, setting it down with practiced care. A towel is laid beside it. She curtsies again, waiting to see if you require anything more. "No, thank you," you manage. With that, she slips out, leaving you alone in the dimly lit chamber. You push aside the weight of wool blankets and quilts, swing your legs over the edge, and your feet meet the icy surface of bare wooden boards. There is no carpeting, only scattered rugs that offer little protection against the cold. At the washstand, you peer into a mirror that distorts your reflection with wavy imperfections. A splash of water shocks your skin awake. The soap is a hard yellow block with the sharp smell of lye. Your clothes are already laid out on a chair, layers of linen, corset, and a gown. Far more complicated than what you're used to. Dressing will take time and help. But first, there is the question of where to relieve yourself. You glance about and notice the chamber pot tucked beneath the bed. Crude, but functional. Later, perhaps, you might discover a proper flush toilet. For now, you set it aside, focusing on dressing as best you can. The corset is stiff, its laces confusing, and fastening it without assistance proves nearly impossible. You manage loosely at best, sliding into petticoats and dress. Not quite secure, but presentable enough. Then you step into the corridor. The hallway walls shimmer with green patterned wallpaper, so vivid it almost glows. Beautiful, yes, but in this era, that particular shade came from arsenic pigments, often known as emerald green. The Victorians adored the colour, not realising the danger it released into the air whenever dampness touched it. Headaches, illness, sometimes worse yet, they embraced it everywhere. Clothing, curtains, even toys. You make a mental note to admire the walls from a distance. You descend carefully, The servants' staircase you peek at is narrow and uneven, perilous if one missteps. You wisely choose the grand staircase instead, sweeping and polished, built to impress guests. At the base, the entry hall feels dim. Heavy curtains blocking out the winter Sunday gas lamps flicker on the walls, their glow beautiful but carrying risk. Gas leaks were common, sometimes filling homes silently until a spark caused an explosion, or people simply slipped away in their sleep, unaware of the invisible fumes. From down the corridor, aromas drift bread fresh from the oven, fried meat, coffee so strong you can almost taste it. Your stomach reminds you that you have not yet eaten. You follow the scent into a smaller breakfast room. A table awaits with dishes of eggs, bacon, sausages, bread, jam, and a pot of steaming liquid. A maid appears silently to serve. Her hands are red, raw from endless washing in lye soap and harsh chemicals. Her smile is brief, professional. "Tea or coffee, madam?" "Coffee," you reply, curious. She pours, and at the first sip you nearly choke. Bitter, strong, with an aftertaste that suggests not all of it is pure. Chicory, perhaps, or burnt sugar stretched to make expensive beans last longer. And the milk set nearby? You leave it untouched, remembering that in these years milk was sometimes improved with borax to mask spoilage. It disguised the taste but not the bacteria within. Thousands of children fell ill from it, their families never realizing the danger was in the glass. You choose instead toast and eggs. Even then, caution whispers. Bread often contained chalk or alum, sausages, all manner of questionable fillers. Tea, at times, adulterated with iron filings. It is safer to eat lightly. As you glance around the cozy room, every surface seems filled with trinkets and photographs, porcelain vases and boxes. The Victorians loved their possessions, layering tables and shelves with keepsakes. Out the window, a garden stirs in the cold morning, tended by a gardener moving slowly between beds. One wonders if the mixture in his sprayer includes arsenic powder, as so many did. When the maid returns, she asks if you'll be receiving callers. 2 cards have already been left. The custom intrigues you, but you shake your head. A walk seems preferable to enduring social rituals when you barely understand the basics of this life. She nods politely. Then I'll ready your walking attire. Victorian fashion required clothing suited for every hour and activity. For walking, another elaborate outfit. Corset tightened, layers arranged, a skirt sweeping close to the cobblestones. You accept, sighing. Soon she returns, helping you into the structured costume, fastening each piece with care. A small hat and gloves are placed into your hands. A parasol offered for sun protection, pale skin being prized above all. Thus prepared, you step outside at last. The morning street hums with life carriages clattering, voices of vendors, children darting between puddles. The air is thick with coal smoke, the ground littered with horse droppings. One must step carefully here, and as you walk, parasol raised, you realize this world is not simply quaint, it is filled with hidden killers woven into every aspect of life. Yet the people endured, adapted, and lived as if none of it were remarkable. By the time the day begins to fade, you have already uncovered more dangers than you can count. Arsenic-laced walls, adulterated food, treacherous staircases, gas flames whispering quietly. Still, the household continues as though it were nothing unusual. Evening arrives, the house glowing with fires and lamps. The servants move about silently, banking fires, preparing rooms. You ascend the main staircase carefully, skirts in hand. In your chamber, a small blaze dances in the hearth. The maid has laid out a nightgown of soft cotton, its lace trim catching the flickering light. She helps you out of the day's costume, unlacing the corset with firm, practiced hands. Relief surges as your lungs expand fully. She folds the garments neatly and departs with a curtsy. At last, alone, you slip into the gown and climb beneath heavy quilts. The bed is high, the mattress uneven, but exhaustion presses you down. For a moment, you almost feel safe until a sudden noise echoes from below. A thud, sharp enough to jolt your heart. Silence follows, thick and uneasy. Was it the house settling? Or some hazard awakening in the night? You lie awake, thoughts circling. The fire dwindles, shadows creeping across the walls. What dangers remain unseen? The toilet you used earlier was modern by their standards, but sewer gases could seep back through weak seals, carrying foul air and even flames. Water itself was treacherous, stored sometimes in tanks lined with lead, leaching poison slowly into every household. Entire epidemics spread this way: cholera, typhoid, waves of sickness, few understood. Rest eludes you, so you light a candle. The match flares, sulfur stinging your nose. These are safer matches, you recall, than those once made with white phosphorus materials that poisoned workers, rotting their jaws until bones glowed faintly in darkness. They called it phossy jaw, a curse of the factories. With the candle in hand, you wander. The house is transformed in night. Stairs loom taller, shadows more threatening. You move carefully, step by step, into the servants' domain. The kitchen waits, vast and silent. Its iron range radiates faint heat. Copper pots hang above, surfaces scarred from endless use. Here, dangers abound: boiling water, open flames, heavy iron that could scald or crush. A small shape darts across the floor, a mouse. Then, from atop a cupboard, a pair of amber eyes regards you. The kitchen cat, guardian of food stores. You pass into the scullery. A stone sink gapes beneath the window, a pump above it. Water drawn by hand, heated in kettles, carried endlessly. The air is damp, biting. You imagine the scullery maid here, hands cracked and raw from lye and cold. The lowest rank, yet burdened with the hardest work. Curiosity draws you toward the pantry. Shelves are lined with jars and bottles. One jar of pickled vegetables bears a lid sealed with dull grey metal-lead solder. Surely, its toxins seeping slowly into what lies beneath. Another shelf holds sauces, sharp and savoury. Worcester-style concoctions beloved by Victorians. But without preservatives, they became breeding grounds for unseen hazards. You retreat, unwilling to taste more of this world's risks. The cellar door waits, dark and forbidding. You leave it closed, knowing that below would be damp stone, mold breeding unchecked, spores invisible yet harmful. Instead, you turn back toward the main house. And then, a sound. A child's whimper. You follow it, candle trembling. The nursery door stands ajar. Inside, a little girl sits up, cheeks wet. "Mama," she whispers, her eyes wide, trusting. She believes you are hers. You sit, smoothing her hair. Her forehead feels warm, perhaps too warm. Illness here is a constant threat: scarlet fever, diphtheria, measles. Each one a danger with no true cure in this time. "It was just a dream," you murmur. She nods, clutching your hand as she drifts back to sleep. You remain, holding her hand, a weight of protectiveness anchoring you. Children here were fragile, their survival uncertain. Toys painted with lead, milk spoiled and masked with chemicals, medicines laced with opiates meant to soothe but sometimes never to wake. The dangers surround even the most innocent. At last, a nurse appears, calm and efficient, taking your place at the bedside. She looks at you oddly. Mothers of this class rarely tended their children so directly. You slip back into your room, heart unsettled, wondering what future awaits that little girl in this world of corsets, poisons, and shadows. Morning eventually comes, though the night felt long and unsettled. When you wake, the chamber has grown chill once more. The embers in the fireplace are only faintly glowing, and the room is grey, with the early light filtering through heavy curtains. The maid arrives quietly, carrying a tray. She curtsies. "It's 7, ma'am. Shall I bring your tea?" Still heavy with sleep, you nod. Soon steam curls from a porcelain teapot into the cold air. A cup and saucer are set beside you, accompanied by thin toast, pale and dry. Victorians rarely spread butter in the morning, considering it too heavy for the first meal. Instead, this plain crisp bread is the norm, softened only by the warmth of tea. The girl also brings a porcelain pitcher of hot water and a basin. Once again, you wash from the stand, splashing your face and neck, running a cloth across your arms. The soap is harsh, a sharp scent of lye. You miss the comfort of a warm shower but adapt, reminding yourself that this is how people began their days. Dressing follows, with another corset, another gown. Today's choice is simpler than the walking costume of yesterday, a morning dress of muted blue with fewer trimmings. Still, the layers feel confining. As the maid laces you in, you focus on breathing steadily. At last, she steps back, satisfied. Downstairs, the house hums with life. In the morning room, you find Charlotte, seated at the table with a plate of bread and a governess-like figure beside her. The woman rises slightly, offering a formal nod. "Good morning, ma'am." Miss Charlotte has completed her scripture and French for the day. The child's eyes brighten as she sees you. "Good morning, Mama." Her voice is polite but eager. A brief spark of warmth tugs at your chest. Before you can respond, another maid enters with a tray. "Mrs. Hensley has called, ma'am, regarding the charity bazaar." She sets a silver-edged card down before you. You glance at it. Another obligation of this world. Social visits, endless and prescribed. "Yes. Tell her I will meet her shortly," you say quietly. Then to the governess you add, "Take Charlotte for her walk, please." The child is bundled in coat, hat, and gloves, a miniature adult in her strict layers. "Be good for your governess," you whisper, brushing her cheek. She nods solemnly. A kiss seems to surprise her, perhaps not something this version of you offers often. Then she departs into the brisk air. Not long after, you meet Mrs. Hensley in the drawing room. She rises at your entrance, a plump figure in a visiting dress trimmed with velvet. "Mrs. Wallace," she exclaims, "how well you look this morning. I fear we must reconsider the flowers for the bazaar. Chrysanthemums are already taken by Mrs. Peyton." You nod as though this detail matters deeply. "What would you suggest instead?" "White roses," she says quickly. "They symbolize innocence, and paired with ivy for fidelity they would be most proper." Her words drift into detail, availability, cost, symbolism of every bloom. The Victorians wove meaning into petals and stems, communicating feelings through arrangements when spoken words were constrained. As she speaks, a dull ache stirs in your temples. The room is stuffy, the wallpaper is cream and blue, thankfully not arsenic green, but dyes themselves could contain hidden risks. The gas fixtures, unlit in daylight, may still leak faintly. Headaches, fatigue, confusion, early signs of carbon monoxide. You cross to the window, easing it open under the pretense of checking the weather. Cold air fills your lungs, clearing your thoughts. "Roses, then?" You agree softly. Mrs. Hensley beams. "Splendid! It will be a triumph." For nearly an hour, she continues gossip, schedules, endless propriety. You respond carefully, never too informal, never inattentive. At last, she departs, and you sag in relief. The effort of maintaining a Victorian facade is exhausting. From the window, you watch the world outside. Ladies in layered gowns, men in tall hats, servants hurrying with parcels, children darting with hoops. The street smells of coal smoke and horses. Noise clatters, wheels, hooves, voices. The city has no zoning. Elegant homes press against shops, even small factories. The air itself is heavy, thick with soot. No wonder the infamous fogs grew so deadly. You close the window, retreating from the din. Yet, curiosity pulls you deeper into the house. Through a side corridor, you discover a heavier room panelled in oak, the study. This is your husband's domain, masculine in style, with shelves of law and philosophy, not novels. Papers rest neatly on a desk beside an inkwell. A photograph in a silver frame shows a stiff family group. Yourself seated, a bearded man beside you, two young men behind, Charlotte at your feet. The expressions are somber, motionless for the long exposure of the camera. No smiles, just the permanence of the moment. Even here, beauty hides danger. Stuffed birds on the mantel, preserved with arsenic. Minerals in a case, brilliant but perhaps laced with mercury or antimony. Even the books may harbour pigments touched with poison. You draw back, unsettled. And then a knock. "Luncheon is served, ma'am," the maid announces. You return to the morning room, where Charlotte has come back rosy-cheeked from her walk. She sits upright at the table, her small hands folded neatly. "We saw the band in the park," she tells you politely. "And Nanny bought me a hot chestnut." You smile, imagining the vendor on the cold corner, fire glowing in a metal pan, paper cones filled with steaming nuts. A simple pleasure in the harsh winter air. Luncheon is modest. Cold meats, bread, fruit, and cheese. You eat lightly, mindful of adulteration that lurks even in such simple fare. Charlotte nibbles at her portion, careful, almost too careful for her age. Children here are expected to mirror adult manners, showing restraint above joy. "What lessons did you study this morning?" you ask. "Scripture and French," she replies, "and my scales on the piano." An ordinary education for a girl of her class, morality, language, and accomplishments to prepare her as a future wife, not as an independent mind. Afterward, she shows you her sampler letters stitched with a moral verse. The needle moves deftly in her fingers, though you notice her squinting. Hours of handwork in dim light could weaken young eyes, yet glasses carried a stigma, particularly for girls. Vision would suffer in silence. Soon the governess retrieves her for afternoon lessons, and you feel reluctant to see her go. The child draws you in, fragile yet brave, navigating a world laced with hazards you cannot easily shield her from. Left alone, you turn to a writing desk, pen and paper ready. You dip the nib into ink, careful not to blot too heavily. The act is slow, deliberate. Each word scratches across the page, forcing you to linger on every thought. You write to an imagined friend, recording the dangers you've observed, the green wallpapers, the toxic food, the hidden poisons in every object. Writing steadies you, anchoring this strange, dreamlike world. Yet as your hand moves, a dizziness creeps in. You pause, gripping the edge of the desk. The room shimmers faintly, edges softening. Is it coal gas? Lead from water pipes? Arsenic dust rising unseen? The world wavers, blurs, and when you blink again, darkness. But not the darkness of the Victorian night. The mattress beneath you is softer, more yielding, the air different, familiar. Slowly, recognition returns. Your own room, your own century. The strange Victorian journey was only a dream. You lie still, absorbing the contrast. Here, there is electric light at the flick of a switch, clean water flowing safely from taps, alarms for fire and gas. Your home is layered with protections won over decades of trial and tragedy. In that dream, beauty masked danger. Here, safety is woven into the ordinary. You reach for the lamp, switch it on. Bright, steady light fills the room, no flame, no gas, no risk. Relief mingles with gratitude. For all the perils of the past, you understand something more. Those who lived then were not reckless. They did not know what we now take for granted. They endured, resilient, shaping lives amid unseen killers, and from their struggles came the safety you now enjoy. The quiet hum of your heating system is the last sound you remember before drifting back to sleep in your own bed. Yet when your eyes flutter open again, you are not at home. You are back beneath heavy quilts in that same high Victorian chamber, fire crackling faintly in the grate. The dream has not released you after all, or perhaps you never truly left. The maid enters briskly, setting down a fresh pitcher of steaming water. "Good morning, ma'am. It's nearly 8. Cook has prepared breakfast." Her tone is efficient, respectful. She lays out a walking costume across a chair without asking, as though she knows you'll be venturing out again. You wash quickly at the basin, the water cooling fast in the chilly air. Then comes the corset again, laces tugged by firm hands until your ribs protest. "Not too tight," you whisper. The girl blinks but loosens it slightly. It is still restrictive, a cage around your middle, but survivable. Layers follow petticoats, gown, gloves, hat. Each article adds weight, pulling you further into the life of another time. The dining room awaits, set for one. Crystal glitters in morning light, silver spoons and knives arranged with military precision. The footman steps forward silently, serving a dish of fish and eggs, bacon and bread. A pot of tea steams beside you. You sip cautiously. The tea tastes strong but not unpleasant. Better, at least, than the bitter coffee of yesterday. You avoid the milk jug on instinct, remembering too well the powders used to mask spoilage. Across the table, the newspapers lie folded, headlines blaring about tensions abroad, Russia, Turkey, Parliament. The year, you realize, has shifted slightly from before. Instead of 1878, this issue of the Gazette proclaims March 1881. Details blur and alter, as though the dream reshapes itself while keeping its essence intact. After breakfast, the maid reminds you that callers are expected this afternoon. You shake your head, declining. A walk in the cold morning air feels more manageable. She helps you into your outer attire. The door closes behind you, and once more you step into the street. Horses clatter past, pulling black cabs. Vendors call out flowers, roasted chestnuts, ribbons. The air tastes of coal smoke, sharp and bitter, mixed with damp. Children dart across cobblestones, their boots splashing through puddles. You hold your skirts carefully, keeping the hem from dragging filth back inside. The neighborhood is elegant, but not immune to filth. Manure piles in the gutters. Ash drifts from countless chimneys, settling on coats and hats. Ladies with parasols nod politely as you pass. A gentleman lifts his tall hat. The rhythm of civility is everywhere, each gesture a small performance. Yet beneath it lies danger. A wagon rumbles by, laden with coal. Its wheels wobble on uneven stones, one slip away from disaster. A child coughs harshly, deep and rattling. Consumption, perhaps the wasting illness that claimed so many lives. Even in wealth, sickness lingered. You pause at the park gates. Beyond the iron fence, gravel paths wind between bare winter trees. The bandstand stands empty now, though you imagine music filling the air on warmer afternoons. For a moment, you breathe deeply, grateful for the open space. Fresh air, the Victorians insisted, could cure nearly anything. In truth, it offered only brief reprieve from the coal-laden city. When you return to the house, the boot scraper waits at the threshold. You clean your shoes carefully before stepping inside. Fires burn brighter now, taking the morning chill away. The drawing room welcomes you with upholstered chairs, thick drapes, and ticking clocks. You sink into one, parasol set aside. For all its dangers, this house holds comfort, too, if one does not think too long about what lurks beneath its beauty. The maid enters with your letters, setting them on a table. Invitations again, dinners, teas, charitable gatherings. The weight of expectation presses. You sigh, resting your head against the chair back. It is still only mid-morning, and the day already feels long. By afternoon, you decide to explore further. The house has corners left unseen, mysteries waiting quietly behind doors. With the corridors silent and the family occupied elsewhere, you rise and make your way toward the back staircase. The narrow steps creak beneath your weight. These are meant for servants, not ladies. Each riser is uneven, carved with more utility than grace. Your hand clutches the banister tightly. One slip could end with a broken limb or worse. It is no wonder so many accidents occurred on these very stairs. At the bottom, the servants' domain spreads before you. The baize door swings inward, muffling the household's hum. Beyond lies the kitchen, alive with smells even in its quiet state. The iron range dominates the wall, blackened by smoke and years of use. Its heat lingers faintly, though the fires are low. Copper pots dangle above, their surfaces dulled with soot. On the table, a stack of flat irons rests, solid and heavy. Once heated on the range, they would be used to press garments. You imagine the laundress wielding them, wrists aching, careful not to scorch fabric or skin. Nearby stands the mangle, two large rollers turned by hand to squeeze water from wet linens. Fingers crushed between them was a too common hazard. You step into the scullery. The stone sink waits beneath a frost-clouded window. The hand pump groans when you test it, yielding only a trickle of water. Here, water would be heated separately, carried in kettles, poured again and again. The scullery maid's world was this: endless scrubbing, damp chill, raw hands cracked from lye and cold. A scratching sound startles you. From the corner, the kitchen cat emerges, tail high, eyes glinting in candlelight. It pads silently across the stones, leaping up to a shelf with a soft thud. Behind, a mouse scurries out of reach. This is the rhythm of the kitchen after hours' quiet battles between predator and pest. Curiosity leads you into the pantry. Shelves hold jars of preserves, their wax seals cracked in places. Bottles of sauces line up neatly, labels curling at the edges. You peer at one jar pickled vegetables sealed beneath a lead lid. The realization unsettles you. Each bite here may carry invisible poison. You retreat quickly, pushing the pantry door closed. Another stands nearby, heavy and locked. The cellar, you realize. Behind it would be damp stone, coal dust, perhaps barrels of ale or wine. But also mold, black and thriving in darkness, its spores drifting unseen. Head arcs, coughing, fatigue, all dismissed as bad air by those who had no concept of fungi. You return toward the baize door. As you pass the range, you notice something else. Small sacks of powders stacked in the corner. Pesticides, likely. Paris green or other arsenic mixtures, meant for gardens. Deadly, yet handled as casually as flour. The contrast strikes you: family rooms lavishly adorned, these workrooms plain and utilitarian. Yet both harbour hazards in equal measure. Beauty or plainness, it made little difference. Danger lingered in the very materials of the age. As you climb back into the main hall, the clock strikes 3. Afternoon light slants through windows, soft but fading fast. Soon, the rituals of tea will begin, porcelain cups and quiet conversation. You feel the weight of hours pressing down, as though each moment in this house carries both elegance and unease. You settle again in the drawing room, parasol by your side, the tick of the mantel clock marking time. Already you know night will bring new perils. The gas lamps will hiss to life, shadows stretching across walls. Fires may flare, or embers may die too quickly. And above all, the silent poisons will linger, unseen but present, waiting in wallpaper, in water, in air. For now, you sit quietly, breath slow, gaze unfocused, letting the house surround you. Another day in this world of beauty and danger moves steadily on. The afternoon wanes, and by the time the clock in the hallway chimes 4, a tray has been brought into the drawing room. Tea is served, as it is every day in homes like this. A maid sets down delicate porcelain cups, a pot kept warm by a small spirit lamp, and a tiered stand of cakes and bread and butter slices. The ritual is as ingrained as breathing in this society. You sip cautiously. The tea is strong but comforting. A thin slice of lemon floats in your cup, its fragrance sharp. Small cakes sit on the tray, iced with pale sugar. You hesitate before taking one, remembering that sugar in this time often travelled across oceans, cut with bone ash in refining. Yet hunger tempts you, and eventually you allow yourself a bite. Sweet, dense, but harmless enough, or so you hope. Outside the window, shadows lengthen. The street grows quieter. Lamps are being lit one by one, each hissing softly as gas flows through thin pipes. You watch through the glass as a lamplighter moves down the row, pole in hand, touching flame to each lantern. Pools of yellow glow bloom in the gathering dusk. Beautiful, yes, but you know what invisible threat accompanies it. Dinner is still hours away. The house settles into its evening rhythm. The butler checks doors. The governess shepherds Charlotte upstairs to prepare for bed. Servants move quietly. Their presence felt more than seen. The fire in the drawing room burns steadily, its crackle a gentle counterpoint to the silence. At last, the maid reappears. "Shall I assist you in changing for dinner, ma'am?" You suppress a sigh. Even dining alone, a lady of standing must appear properly attired. You follow her upstairs, where an evening gown awaits, a deep crimson trimmed with dark lace. The corset is tightened once more, skirts arranged carefully. A bustle extends the silhouette, awkward and exaggerated. Sitting will be difficult. Breathing, too. Yet this is the expectation. When you descend again, the dining room is transformed. A single-place setting gleams beneath the chandelier. Silverware is arranged in strict order. Multiple forks, knives, and spoons, each with its role. The footman stands ready, expression unreadable. The meal unfolds slowly, course by course. A clear broth first, steaming and delicate. Then fish, served with lemon. Meat follows, accompanied by vegetables. Each plate is cleared with quiet precision. You eat sparingly, mindful that food here carries its own risks, additives to preserve colour, fillers hidden in sausages, wine sweetened with lead. Dessert arrives, a small pudding with sugared sauce. You taste a spoonful, then set it aside. The sweetness cloys, and unease whispers in your stomach. When at last the courses end, you feel weary from formality alone. Every gesture, every sip is observed. The footman asks quietly, "Will you take coffee in the drawing room, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you." You retreat once more to the comfort of armchairs and firelight. Coffee arrives, bitter and dark. You sip, savouring the warmth, though the taste reminds you of the adulterations you learned about that morning. Still, it soothes. The house quiets further as the hour grows late. Servants bank the fires, extinguish unnecessary lamps, move toward their quarters in attic and basement. You sit by the fire until its glow softens to embers. The clock ticks toward 9, then 10. Time here runs differently, each moment stretched by ritual. At last, you rise. The maid guides you upstairs, helps you out of gown and corset, into the soft folds of a nightdress. Relief floods your chest as the laces loosen. Freed from the day's restrictions, your lungs expand fully. You slip beneath quilts, the mattress lumpy but oddly familiar now. The fire has burned low again. Shadows flicker on the walls. Sleep beckons, though unease lingers. How many unseen dangers linger even here, in this quiet room? The wallpaper, the gas fixtures, the mattress itself, all might harbour threats. Yet weariness pulls you under, into the strange stillness of Victorian night. You dream uneasily, waking at intervals to the creak of timbers or the faint rattle of a window pane. Once, you smell something acrid sharp, chemical. You sit up, pulse quickened. Could it be gas? A leak in some unseen pipe? You listen but hear nothing beyond the whisper of wind outside. Eventually you settle back, though sleep remains shallow. When you wake fully, the fire has died to cold ashes. The room is ink dark. Only faint moonlight seeps past the curtains. You grope for the matches, strike one, and light a candle. The flame steadies, casting soft golden light over familiar shapes. The urge to explore returns. You pull a dressing gown around your shoulders, slip feet into wool slippers, and lift the candle. The door creaks as you ease it open. The hallway stretches, dim and quiet. Shadows lean long against the walls. You descend the staircase slowly, careful with each step. The banister is smooth beneath your hand, but the steep angle makes you wary. A fall here would be swift and deadly. At the bottom, you pause, listening. The house breathes softly, a pop from the hearth downstairs, a sigh of draught through windows. All else is still. You move toward the kitchen again, candle held high. The range glows faintly with banked coals. Pots dangle in shadow. On the table, dishes left to soak gleam faintly in water. You step into the scullery, where damp air presses close. The stone sink smells faintly of iron and soap. You run a hand along the pump, cool and slick. It groans under your touch. A faint rustle breaks the silence. A mouse scampers across the stones, vanishing into shadow. A moment later, the tabby leaps gracefully, tail twitching. Its amber eyes fix on you for a moment before turning back to its hunt. The pantry draws you next. You hold the candle higher, scanning rows of jars and bottles. Preserves glimmer red and amber in the light, but lids shine dull grey, lead solder sealing them tight. Bottles of sauces sit neatly labelled, though you know their safety is uncertain. Spoilage lurks unseen. You retreat, closing the door softly. The cellar waits still, its locked door forbidding. You imagine dampness, barrels, mould creeping over walls. The thought alone chills you more than the draught. Back through the baize door, you ascend toward the family rooms. Halfway up, a sound halts you, a child's voice, thin and tremulous. You follow it to the nursery, door ajar. Inside, Charlotte sits upright in her small bed, cheeks damp with tears. "Mama," she whispers, eyes wide. You cross the room quickly, setting your candle on the table. "It was only a dream," you murmur, smoothing her hair. She clings to your hand, small fingers tight around yours. Her skin feels warm. Fever? In this world, even minor illness could become deadly. Scarlet fever, measles, diphtheria, all claimed young lives without warning. A mother's fear settles heavy in your chest. "Would you like me to stay until you sleep?" you ask softly. She nods. You sit on the edge of her bed, holding her hand as her breathing steadies. Slowly, her eyelids droop, lashes resting against her cheeks. You remain, watching her chest rise and fall. The rocking horse looms in the corner, paint bright even in dim light. Yet you know its pigments conceal danger, lead, mercury, arsenic. The doll on the shelf too, its painted cheeks poisoned unknowingly. Your own eyes grow heavy. For a moment you drift, head bowed beside the child. Then a gentle hand touches your shoulder. You startle awake. The night nurse stands with a lamp, her expression composed. "Ma'am?" she whispers. "You've fallen asleep here. I'll watch her now." You ease your hand free from Charlotte's grasp, rising stiffly. The nurse's gaze lingers, curious, perhaps surprised. Mothers of this class rarely tended children at night. That was the servant's role. You slip back to your room, candle guttering low. The bed awaits, quilts heavy, mattress uneven. You crawl beneath, shivering in the chill. The fire has died entirely. Darkness presses close. Sleep comes slowly, thoughts circling around Charlotte, around the countless dangers she faces each day, dangers woven into the fabric of her world. The house stirs again before dawn. You hear movement above, in attic rooms where the servants sleep. They rise early, long before the family, to rekindle fires, draw water, and prepare the day's meals. Their footsteps are light, their whispers hushed, but the rhythm of work hums through the timbers of the house. A knock at your door rouses you fully. The maid enters with practiced ease, arms full of kindling. Soon the hearth in your room is alive with sparks, flames licking dry wood. The air warms slowly, chasing away the damp cold that clung to the night. She lays a gown across the chair, pale grey wool with modest trim. "Shall I bring your morning tea, ma'am?" she asks. "Yes, thank you." By the time you wash at the basin, the tray has arrived. Steam curls from a silver pot. Beside it rests more dry toast, crisp and plain. You sip the strong tea slowly, grateful for the familiar flavour, though you avoid the small jug of milk. The memory of powders and borax lingers too sharply. Dressing follows. Corset laces pulled taut again. Each day, the same ritual. Confinement at the waist, layers of petticoats, gown fastened carefully. Already your ribs ache faintly. Yet in this time, beauty demanded sacrifice. When you descend to the breakfast room, the table is laden. Eggs, sausages, smoked fish, loaves of bread, small cakes. The abundance is startling for one person, but in Victorian homes, a hearty breakfast was believed essential for health. The maid pours coffee this time, bitter again, strong to the point of harshness. You sip cautiously, deciding quickly to switch back to tea at the next opportunity. Charlotte enters briefly with her governess. She curtsies formally, her small face serious. "Good morning, Mama." "Good morning," you reply, offering a faint smile. The governess leads her away for lessons soon after. Scripture, French, piano, scales the pattern repeats. Education for girls of her class is not to cultivate intellect but accomplishments. Left alone, you decide to explore further. Beyond the dining room lies the library, quiet and lined with shelves of leather-bound volumes. The air smells faintly of dust and beeswax. You trail your fingers along spines, histories of the empire, treatises on natural philosophy, volumes of poetry. A globe stands in the corner, pink patches marking territories claimed abroad. On the mantel rests a glass case of curiosities, shells, fossils, a stuffed bird. Each object tells of curiosity, of classification, of ownership. Yet each also carries risk. Taxidermy preserved with arsenic, minerals laced with mercury or antimony. Even beauty here cannot be trusted. You settle into a chair, gazing at the fire. The tick of a clock punctuates the stillness. For a moment, you allow yourself to rest, the heaviness of the corset pressing against your ribs. Yet unease remains. Even here, in this quiet sanctuary, hidden dangers wait in silence. By midday, the house is alive again. Servants move briskly, carrying trays, arranging linens, sweeping fireplaces. The governess ushers Charlotte past the drawing room toward the nursery, her small voice reciting French phrases. You watch them go, a pang of protectiveness catching you off guard. Luncheon is simple: bread, cheese, cold meat, fruit. You eat sparingly, uncertain of what each item hides. Bread whitened with alum, meat stretched with fillers, fruit washed in water drawn from questionable pipes. You peel carefully, discarding skins, taking only what seems safest. After the meal, you wander into the sewing room upstairs. Sunlight filters through tall windows, catching on baskets of thread and folded fabrics. A Singer sewing machine sits in the corner, hand-cranked, gleaming with use. Beside it, a dressmaker's dummy, its waist impossibly narrow. You measure roughly with your hands, barely 18 inches around. The corset required to fit such proportions would press ribs inward, organs downward, breath shallow. You lift a bolt of cloth, brilliant emerald. At once you set it down, remembering. Arsenic dyes, still used in fabrics, especially in vivid greens. Beauty, once again, laced with peril. In the nursery next door, toys rest quietly. Alphabet blocks, a doll with porcelain cheeks painted bright, a rocking horse in scarlet and green. Each object cheerful on the surface, yet tainted. Lead paint, mercury pigments, toxic dust. The child's world itself is poisoned without her knowing. Your heart aches briefly. How did mothers endure, knowing how fragile their children were in this age? Illnesses without cures, toys laced with harm, milk masking rot with powders. Loss hovered constantly, a shadow in every household. A soft rap on the door draws you back. "Tea is ready, ma'am," the maid announces. Downstairs again, you settle with porcelain cup in hand. Outside, dusk creeps earlier each day, shadows long across cobblestones. You hear the lamplighter again, his pole sparking flame into hissing lamps. The glow is beautiful, golden against the fog, yet you know what lingers within those pipes. Carbon monoxide, odorless, deadly. Families went to bed in such houses and never woke again. The maid fusses with curtains, drawing them closed against the chill. The fire crackles, warm, steady. You sip, listening to the tick of the mantel clock. For all its danger, this world carries charm too. The order of rituals, the weight of craftsmanship, the rhythm of days. It is a paradox beauty intertwined with peril, comfort laced with unease. As the clock strikes 6, preparations for dinner begin again. Another gown awaits upstairs, another corset to endure, another performance at the table, even alone. You rise reluctantly, ready to enter once more into the endless routines of Victorian life. Evening falls with a hush. The house glows with lamplight, fires brightened, curtains drawn against the cold. You descend to the dining room once more, the rustle of skirts brushing the carpet. A single place is laid with china and silver, gleaming beneath the chandelier. The footman stands ready, silent, attentive. The first course arrives, a clear soup, delicate yet faintly salty. You sip cautiously, aware that broth in this age may have been boiled from questionable stock, bones simmered with little regard for sanitation. Still, it warms you against the draught. Course follows course. Fish, served with lemon wedges. Meat, carved and placed neatly on your plate. Vegetables, boiled soft. A pudding rich with sugar. You taste each sparingly, aware that food here is not merely sustenance but potential hazard. Wine is offered, ruby in the glass. You swirl it gently, recalling how vintners in this time sometimes sweetened poor harvests with lead or copper to deepen colour. You decline after a sip, preferring caution. By the final course, weariness settles heavy. Formal meals drain more than they nourish. Posture must remain upright, gestures controlled, conversation minimal but proper. When at last the footman clears the last dish, you breathe easier. The drawing room welcomes you again with firelight. A tray of coffee waits, its aroma strong, though you hesitate before sipping. The bitterness is sharp, but warmth spreads through you. The clock on the mantel chimes softly. Outside, gas lamps hiss in the fog. The city beyond is cloaked, muffled, breathing through coal smoke and damp. As the hour grows late, the maid assists you upstairs. Another gown is removed, corset unlaced, nightdress slipped over your shoulders. Relief washes through as ribs expand, lungs free. You sink into the mattress, quilts heavy against the chill. Shadows dance across the walls from the last glow of embers. Sleep comes, though uneasy. You wake in darkness, uncertain of the hour. The fire has burned low, leaving only faint embers. The silence is deep, broken only by the creak of beams as the house shifts with the cold. Then, a scent reaches you, sharp, chemical, unsettling. Heart quickening, you sit up, sniffing the air, not smoke, something else. Gas, the dread rises. In these years, leaks were common, pipes poorly sealed, valves imperfect, carbon monoxide invisible, odorless, silent. But manufacturers sometimes added smells to warn households. Perhaps this acrid tang is one such warning. You rise quickly, pulling on a dressing gown, feet slipping into slippers. Candle in hand, you step into the hall. A faint glow spills from a door at the far end. You follow, cautious. Inside, you find a man in dressing gown, beard neatly kept, bent over glass vessels. He looks up, startled but calm. "My dear, you ought to be in bed," he says. It takes you a moment to place him, your Victorian husband, this world's counterpart. "What are you doing?" you ask softly, eyes flicking to the powders and bottles on the table. "Preparing a draught for sleep," he replies. The doctor insists it is harmless. A touch of chloral hydrate, a measure of laudanum. Most effective. Your gaze sharpens. You know these substances, sedatives and opiates, widely prescribed, widely abused. Is it safe? He smiles faintly. Safe enough. Though one does feel heavy in the morning. He tips liquid into a glass, swirls, and drinks it down with a grimace. Vile stuff, but better than staring at the ceiling until dawn. He bows slightly, formal even here. You should rest. He extinguishes the lamp, leaving only your candlelight. The smell lingers as he retreats to another chamber. Separate rooms, you realize. In this class, husband and wife often slept apart. You return to your bed, mind unsettled. How many here depend on such concoctions? Laudanum prescribed for pain, chloral for sleep, opiates for children's teething syrups. Addiction, whispered in every household, though rarely named. The embers fade, cold creeps back. You slip beneath the quilts, shivering, candle extinguished. Darkness presses close once more. Morning comes with pale light filtering through curtains. A knock at the door, the maid entering with a tray, tea, steaming gently, and more dry toast. The fire is stoked back to life, smoke curling up the chimney. "Shall I draw a bath, ma'am?" she asks. You shake your head. The memory of buckets hauled, servants waiting, privacy sacrificed, it is too much. "Just washing water," you reply. She nods, filling the porcelain basin once again. You splash your face, rub hands briskly with cloth, scrub teeth with powder on a stiff brush. The taste is sharp, chalky, faintly metallic. Toothpaste as you know it is far in the future. Clothes await, another gown, another corset, another day of layered confinement. You dress with help, breathing shallowly as the laces tighten. Each morning repeats the ritual of restriction. Downstairs, the house hums. Charlotte eats breakfast with her governess, posture already trained into formality. She greets you politely, a miniature adult. "Good morning, Mama." The governess asks if you prefer her lessons to remain indoors, or if Charlotte may walk again. "Let her walk," you say softly. Fresh air may be her best defense in this perilous world. After they depart, a maid enters with a card. Another visitor waits Mrs. Dalton. Hear about the parish relief fund. You sigh inwardly, but accept. Social calls are unavoidable. In the drawing room, Mrs. Dalton launches into details of contributions, of families in need, of arrangements for an upcoming bazaar. Her tone is brisk, authoritative. You nod, responding when required, though your attention drifts to the wallpaper, the gas fixtures, the thought of air thick with unseen hazards. A faint headache blooms. You rise discreetly, open a window under pretense of checking the weather. Cold air rushes in, clearing your thoughts. Outside, the street bustles, carts rumbling, vendors calling, horses steaming in the cold. Coal smoke veils the distance, mingling with fog. You turn back, smile politely, agree where needed. When Mrs. Dalton departs, relief washes over you. The rituals of propriety drain as much as the corset. You stand at the window longer, watching the city. Beauty and filth intertwined, carriages beside dung heaps, shop fronts beside fine homes, smoke veiling rooftops, progress and peril moving side by side, as inseparable as day and night. The clock strikes noon. Servants prepare luncheon. Another day in this house unfolds, its rhythms steady, its dangers hidden yet constant. Luncheon is served in the morning room. A plate of bread, cheese and cold meats laid neatly on the table, with fruit in a polished bowl. Charlotte joins you, her governess seated watchfully nearby. The child's cheeks are flushed from her walk, her eyes bright. "We saw the chestnut man again," she says softly, as though seeking permission to share. "Nanny, let me have one." You smile faintly, picturing the vendor with his brazier on a street corner, smoke curling upward into the fog. A small treat, cheap yet warming, beloved by all classes. "I'm glad," you reply. The meal passes quietly. You eat sparingly bread, an apple, a slice of cheese wary still of hidden dangers. Alum in flour, lead in glazes, contamination in milk. Even the fruit may have been dusted with arsenic to keep pests away. You peel it carefully, setting the skin aside. After luncheon, Charlotte shows you her needlework. She sits primly, a sampler stretched taut in her small frame, letters, numbers, and a verse stitched in even rows. Her fingers are deft, though you notice her squinting slightly in the dim light. Vision strained, uncorrected, for glasses are discouraged in girls. Vanity and appearances outweigh comfort. The governess retrieves her after an hour, lessons awaiting upstairs. You watch them leave with a pang of reluctance. Each time, it surprises you the pull of protectiveness for this child who believes you are her mother. Left alone, you wander again through the house. The study draws you masculine, lined with law books and heavy oak. Papers on the desk speak of cases, arguments, politics. A photograph in silver frame shows the family. Yourself, your bearded husband Charlotte, and two older boys. Their solemn faces stare outward, still and rigid from long exposure. Even here, danger lingers. The bindings of green books possibly coloured with arsenic, taxidermy birds preserved with poison, mineral specimens gleaming with mercury sulfide, beauty concealing hazard, knowledge preserved in forms that carry risk. You leave the study unsettled, returning to the drawing room. Outside, afternoon fades, lamps flicker in the streets. Soon, the day will give way to evening rituals once again. The clock strikes 4, and tea arrives. The maid carries a silver tray, setting cups, saucers, and a teapot steaming gently. Small sandwiches and cakes fill a plate. You sip carefully. The tea is dark, leaves settled at the bottom. A slice of lemon floats in your cup. The sweetness of a small cake tempts you, though sugar itself is not without its perils. Still, Hunger wins. Outside, the lamplighter makes his rounds. Through the window, you watch him lift his pole, touch flame to the lamps, one after another. Gas hisses, flames bloom golden in the fog. The sight is beautiful, but your mind recalls the silent threat. Leaks, explosions, suffocation, progress always shadowed by risk. The governess brings Charlotte briefly to the drawing room after her lessons. The child curtsies neatly, then sits beside you with her embroidery. Her concentration is intense, fingers moving swiftly. She looks up once, eyes meeting yours, uncertain. You reach out, smoothing her hair back, a gesture of tenderness. She blinks, surprised, then lowers her gaze. Perhaps in this world, such affection is rare. When she departs again, silence fills the room. The fire burns steadily, casting warmth. You lean back, corset pressing ribs, shoulders aching. The day feels heavy, though it is not yet evening. At 6, the dinner ritual begins once more. A gown is laid out, corset tightened, bustle arranged. You descend to the dining room where silver gleams, table set with formality. Course after course arrives, each small yet excessive in number. Soup, fish, meat, pudding, cheese, wine poured into crystal glasses. You taste each cautiously, aware always of what might lurk unseen. Fillers, dyes, preservatives of the most dangerous kind. By the time the final dish is cleared, you feel more weary than full. The rituals demand posture, restraint, precision. The footman observes every move, silent and steady. The drawing room welcomes you afterward, with coffee bitter but warming, brandy waiting in a decanter you dare not touch. Spirits in this time may contain fusel oils, adulterants, poisons disguised as flavor. You sit long by the fire, watching flames dance. Shadows stretch across wallpaper, shifting with each flicker. Outside, the fog thickens, swallowing the street in grey silence. Night deepens, and the house grows quiet. Servants bank fires, extinguish lamps, retreat to attic and cellar quarters. You ascend the staircase slowly, skirts rustling against carpet. The hallway is dim, lit by only a single lamp. Shadows loom across walls patterned with faded florals. In your chamber, the maid assists with undressing. Buttons undone, corset unlaced, nightdress slipped on. Relief floods you again as your chest expands, lungs filling freely. The maid tidies garments, curtsies, departs. Alone, you slip into bed. The mattress is uneven, quilts heavy, pillows lumpy with feathers. The fire dwindles to embers, glow soft against the walls. You breathe deeply, eyes closing, body sinking into warmth. But sleep is restless. A sound wakes you faint, distant. A creak, then a bang. Your pulse quickens. Is it a settling beam? A servant? Or something more? Gas hiss. A draught through chimney? You hold still, listening. Silence returns. Slowly, your body relaxes. Yet unease lingers. You think of what surrounds you. Wallpapers infused with arsenic, fabrics dyed with poison, water drawn from lead pipes, medicines laced with opium. A world of beauty and peril intertwined. How did they endure? How many lives shortened, unknowingly, by the comforts they embraced? You drift again, thoughts spiraling. The child's toys painted with lead, the governess firm but kind, the bearded man mixing draughts at night, their lives woven with hazard, their futures uncertain. When morning comes again, you know the cycle will repeat. Corsets laced, tea poured, callers arriving, meals laid with formality, danger and beauty moving hand in hand, as inseparable as breath and heartbeat. The embers fade, darkness swells. You surrender at last to sleep, mind filled with images of foggy streets, flickering gas lamps, and a child's hand warm in yours. Morning arrives with pale light pressing against the curtains. The maid enters softly, as she always does, arms full of kindling. Soon your hearth is alive again, flames flickering warmly in the grate. She sets a tray down, tea, toast, a small dish of eggs, and withdraws without fuss. You sit up against pillows, sipping carefully. The tea is strong, the toast crisp, the eggs salted faintly. You chew slowly, thinking of the day ahead. In this household, routine is everything. Breakfast, lessons for Charlotte, calls for yourself, luncheon, tea, dinner, bed. The pattern repeats, day after day. When you descend to the drawing room later, the governess stands with Charlotte at her side. "Scripture and geography this morning, ma'am," she says firmly. Charlotte curtsies, eyes bright but serious. "What will you learn in geography?" you ask gently. "The continents, mamma," she replies. "And the rivers of Africa." You nod. The Victorians are fascinated with maps, with the empire stretching outward across the globe. Globes in studies, maps in schools, pink shading marking territories claimed. Yet with pride came blindness, resources extracted, lives reshaped, diseases carried both ways. After Charlotte departs, the maid brings calling cards. Two ladies have visited. You decline to receive them, unwilling to face another hour of stiff conversation. Instead, you choose to walk. The walking costume is laid out, corset laced, jacket buttoned, hat secured. Outside, the winter air bites at your cheeks. Horses clatter past, carts rumble, vendors cry their wares. The fog hangs low, smoke from chimneys blending with damp air. You step carefully on cobblestones, skirts lifted just enough to avoid filth. Children dart past, ragged and barefoot, their laughter sharp against the heavy air. A beggar coughs, hand outstretched. You pass, torn between pity and fear. Disease lingers in every ragged cough, every breath of damp air. At the park, gravel crunches beneath your boots. Other ladies stroll, parasols in hand, nodding politely. Gentlemen lift hats, each movement part of the ritual of visibility, civility. The bandstand is empty today, but you imagine the music, brass notes echoing in open air. You breathe deeply, though the air is heavy with coal smoke. Fresh air, Victorians believed, could cure nearly everything, yet here, freshness is tainted. Still, the open space feels freeing after the confines of the house. When you return, the boot scraper waits at the threshold. You clean your shoes carefully before entering. The house welcomes with warmth, fires stoked, lamps trimmed. You shed layers, sink into a chair, grateful to be off your feet. The corset pinches still, but rest eases the ache. Luncheon arrives. Bread, fruit, slices of cold meat. Charlotte sits opposite, small hands folded properly. She eats slowly, trained in restraint. "What hymn did you practice this morning?" you ask. She straightens. "All things bright and beautiful, Mama." You smile faintly. The tune drifts into your mind, though her voice remains silent at the table. Songs in this household are lessons, not joys. After the meal, Charlotte is led away again. You wander the upstairs corridors, curiosity drawing you. The nursery lies quiet now, toys neatly arranged. You examine the doll with porcelain cheeks, the rocking horse bright with paint. Both hide, silent dangers lead, mercury, arsenic, unknown to those who loved them. In the sewing room, bolts of fabric rest folded, spools of thread gleaming. A singer machine waits in the corner, its crank polished by use. The dressmaker's dummy stands nearby, waist impossibly narrow. You touch it lightly, imagining the ribs pressed inward, the lungs compressed. Beauty demanded suffering. From the window you watch the garden below. The gardener bends over rose bushes, spraying from a canister. The mist drifts upward faintly. Arsenic again, Paris green scattered freely to kill insects. Soil, water, air, each touched with poison. You step back, unsettled. Every corner of this world carries hidden harm, yet people live, laugh, marry, raise children amid it. They endure, unaware of what you know. By afternoon, tea arrives once more. You sip slowly, gazing at firelight. The governess brings Charlotte briefly, her embroidery in hand. She sits near, stitching carefully. Her fingers are nimble, her brow furrowed in concentration. You watch her, heart tightening. A child, so young, already pressed into formality, into silence, into restraint. When she leaves again, quiet settles. You rise, wandering into the study once more. Books line the shelves, heavy and dark. Papers rest neatly on the desk. The photograph of the family sits where you left it, eyes staring outward. Even knowledge here carries danger. Green bindings dyed with arsenic, paper treated with chemicals, ink corrosive. The very act of preserving thought can shorten life. You set the book down gently, unsettled. The clock strikes 5. Outside, lamps hiss to life. The lamplighter moves steadily down the street, pole raised, flame blooming in fog, shadows stretch, walls flicker. The world shifts toward evening once again. Dinner is laid formally, as always. Soup first, steaming gently, fish follows, delicate but slightly bitter. Meat after, rich and heavy, vegetables boiled soft, a pudding with sauce, cheese, fruit, wine. You taste each sparingly, posture straight, gestures careful. The footman serves, watches, clears. The ritual is endless, performance more than sustenance. By the end, you feel weary, corset pressing ribs, shoulders aching. The drawing room offers respite. Fire burns, lamps hiss softly. Coffee waits on a tray, its bitterness sharp but warming. You sip, gazing at flames, mind drifting. The house grows quiet. Servants retreat, fires banked, gas lamps dim. You ascend once more, assisted from gown into nightdress, ribs freed at last. Relief floods you as lungs expand. You sink into bed, quilts heavy, mattress uneven. Embers glow faintly, shadows flicker across walls. Sleep comes, though unease lingers. Sometime in the night, you wake again. The house creaks softly, wind rattling a loose frame. Then a faint sound, whimpering. You rise, candle in hand, following the sound. The nursery door stands ajar. Inside, Charlotte sits upright, cheeks damp with tears. "Mama," she whispers. You cross quickly, sit beside her, smoothing her hair. "It was only a dream," you murmur. She clings to your hand, small fingers, warm, fragile. You stay until her breathing steadies, eyelids drooping, lashes resting against cheeks. You hold her hand still, your own eyes heavy. When the night nurse enters quietly, lamp in hand, she finds you there. "I'll watch her now, ma'am," she whispers. You rise reluctantly, easing your hand free. Back in your room, embers glow faintly. You slip beneath quilts, mind heavy with thought. How fragile life was here, how constant the dangers, and yet how steadfastly people endured. Sleep comes slowly. Your last thought of Charlotte's hand warm in yours, pulse beating steadily beneath her skin. Morning comes again with the scrape of coal being shoveled into grates, the low thud of buckets set down, the shuffle of footsteps in attic halls. You wake to the knock of the maid. Curtains are drawn back, pale winter light flooding the chamber. Tea arrives on a tray, steam curling upward. You sit up, sip slowly, and feel warmth spread. Outside, the street hums to life. Hoofbeats, wheels, voices of vendors. The fog has lifted slightly, revealing rooftops etched against grey sky. Charlotte appears briefly with her governess, already dressed neatly. She curtsies, eyes solemn. "Good morning, Mamma." You reply in kind, smoothing her hair. The governess leads her away for lessons. You descend later to find the morning room bright with daylight. Newspapers lie folded. Headlines filled with parliament debates, news of faraway wars, announcements of society events. You scan quickly, marveling that so little space is given to common people, to illness, to the daily struggles you see outside windows. Luncheon is laid simply, bread, fruit, cheese. You eat sparingly, then decide to step outside. The walking costume awaits, corset tightened, jacket buttoned, hat secured. You emerge into sharp air. The street bustles with carts and carriages, children playing, vendors shouting. Coal smoke mingles with damp, the air thick. At the park, paths are lined with bare trees, branches black against pale sky. Gentlemen stroll, ladies with parasols nod politely. You walk slowly, skirts brushing gravel. Breathing feels easier here, though the air still carries faint smoke. Returning home, you scrape boots, enter warmth again. Fires burn, lamps trimmed. You sink into a chair, relieved. The corset presses, but you endure. Another day stretches ahead, marked by routines and dangers both. Afternoon tea arrives promptly. A silver tray, porcelain cups, steaming pot, small sandwiches and cakes. You sip carefully, the tea strong, the cakes sweet. Charlotte joins briefly, stitching sampler letters neatly. Her concentration is intense, her brow furrowed. You smooth her hair softly. She blinks, surprised at the gesture. Affection seems rare in this household. The governess retrieves her soon after. Lessons continuing, the house quiets. You wander into the library once more, shelves lined with volumes, bindings dark and heavy. A globe rests in the corner, pink spreading across continents. Papers lie on the desk, legal arguments, letters, notes. You leaf through carefully, mind drifting. Even knowledge here carries weight, ink corrosive, paper tainted, green bindings laced with arsenic. Yet these books endure, their dangers invisible to those who read them daily. Outside, lamps are lit once more. You hear the lamplighters pole tap glass, flames blooming in fog. The glow spreads, golden halos in the gloom. Beauty and hazard entwined again. Dinner follows at 6. Soup, fish, meat, vegetables, pudding. Course after course, ritualized, demanding posture and control. The footman watches silently. By the end, you are weary more from etiquette than from food. The drawing room offers respite afterward. Fire burns, coffee waits. You sip, gaze into flames, mind drifting. Outside, the city lies veiled in fog and smoke. Inside, danger lingers still, woven into every wall and object. Night deepens, servants' bank fires, extinguish lamps, withdraw. The house grows quiet, shadows stretching across patterned walls. You ascend to your chamber, undressed by the maid, corset unlaced, nightdress slipped on. Relief comes as lungs expand freely. You slip into bed, quilts heavy, mattress uneven. The fire glows faintly, shadows flickering. Sleep comes but uneasily. A sound wakes you, the faint hiss of gas. You sit up quickly, heart racing. The lamps are dark, yet the scent lingers faintly. You rise, candle in hand, and open the window. Cold air rushes in, sharp, clearing. You breathe deeply, heart slowing. The thought lingers. How many lives ended this way, quietly, in sleep? Families never waking, undone by invisible poisons. You return to bed, quilts drawn high. Sleep comes again, though unease remains. Dreams swirl streets of fog, lamps hissing, children coughing, walls lined with poisonous paper. When morning comes, relief washes over you. Light filters through curtains, fire rekindled. The maid enters with tea, voice steady. Another day begins, patterns repeating, hazards waiting quietly in every corner. By late morning, you find yourself in the kitchen again, drawn to its plainness. The range burns steadily, pots hang above, tables scarred by years of use. The scullery damp, stones sink cold, pump groaning. The pantry lined with jars sealed in lead, sauces fermenting slowly. A mouse scurries across the stones. The tabby follows swiftly, leaping silently. Predator and prey, the quiet rhythm of this space. Laundry waits nearby. Flat irons heavy, heated on range, pressing wrinkles from fabric. The mangle looms, rollers thick and close, ready to crush water from cloth or fingers if mishandled. Soap strong with lye, buckets steaming, water carried again and again. The work is endless, the hazards constant. You retreat at last, unsettled. Back in family rooms, fires glow, chairs soft, drapes heavy. Yet comfort itself is laced with risk. Poison dyes, toxic pigments, gases hissing unseen. Beauty conceals peril. The clock strikes noon. Luncheon awaits again, bread, fruit, cheese. You eat sparingly, mind elsewhere. afternoon stretches, tea at 4, dinner at 6, bed at 9. Each hour marked by ritual, each ritual touched by danger. You sit quietly in the drawing room, listening to the tick of the clock. Outside, fog thickens, lamps hiss. The world narrows to firelight, to shadows on walls, to the slow rhythm of breath. The cycle repeats once more. Tea in the morning, toast dry, corset laced, gowns layered, breakfast abundant, rituals rigid, lessons for Charlotte, callers with cards, gossip about bazaars. Each detail proper, precise, yet draining. You watch Charlotte more closely, her hands deft with stitches, her posture straight, her smile rare. A child moulded into formality, pressed into silence, surrounded by danger she cannot see. Toys painted with lead, milk laced with borax, medicines filled with opium, her future uncertain, her risks countless. The governess guides her firmly. Lessons continue. Piano scales, scripture, French, education as ornament, not freedom. By evening, dinner unfolds again, formal and excessive. You taste cautiously, sip wine sparingly, decline brandy entirely. The drawing room offers brief comfort after fire crackling, coffee bitter but warm. Night falls, servants retreat, gas lamps hiss softly, embers fade. You slip into bed once more, quilts heavy, mattress uneven. Darkness presses, silence deepens. Sleep comes, fragile, filled with unease. Dreams drift streets shrouded in fog, lamps hissing, carriages rattling, voices fading. The city breathes through coal smoke, the house through unseen poisons. You lie still, surrendered, breathing slowly in the rhythm of this world. And then something shifts. You wake, but not to the scrape of coal or the knock of a maid. Instead, silence, familiar silence. You open your eyes to your own bedroom, soft mattress beneath you, smooth sheets, pillows cradling gently. The air is clear, no coal smoke, no acrid gas, no arsenic dust. Just the faint hum of your home's heating, steady, safe. For a moment, you lie still, disoriented. Then relief floods you. No corset pressing ribs, no bustle weighing, no poisoned wallpaper near your head. Only modern walls, safe paint, clean water in pipes. You sit up, switching on the lamp beside you. Light fills the room instantly, steady, without flame, without risk. Electricity hums silently, reliable, contained. The dream lingers. You remember Charlotte's hand in yours, warm and small. You remember gas lamps hissing, arsenic greens glowing, lead paint on toys, laudanum poured into glasses. You remember the resilience of those who lived with such dangers daily, unaware of their risks. You breathe deeply, grateful. For clean water, tested food, regulated medicines. For alarms on ceilings that warn of smoke or carbon monoxide. For protections built through decades of lessons, tragedies turned into laws. You settle back against pillows, eyelids heavy. Sleep returns, peaceful this time. No fear of gas leaks, no weight of corsets, no hidden poisons lurking in walls. Only the safety of your modern home, cocooned by progress and vigilance. As you drift, images soften, foggy streets fading, gas lamps dimming, Charlotte's smile lingering faintly. You carry it with you into dreams, a reminder of how far humanity has come and how much is owed to those who endured. Your breathing slows, deep and steady. Muscles relax. Sleep deepens, true and safe. The Victorian dangers dissolve into memory, leaving only the rhythm of rest.